over to you.
Hi, everybody. Let's start with this topic. This topic is like on a lighter note than the previous one. It's not actually my domain of expertise, as I work as a researcher at Avast and malware analyst, but this is kind of a personal, and I will show you why. So, how many of you know MQTT protocol? I guess it's widely used and quite well known. So let's dive into the presentation. Okay, so welcome to the age of speed and security. To start with some quote, I particularly love this one, which says a lot. A computer lets you make more mistakes faster than any invention in human history, with the possible exception of handguns and tequila. Security-wise, it's so true. And I will show you how the bad configuration, the misconfiguration of the security can lead to several leaks of private data and also can lead to physical, let's say, attacks and physical danger for the user or for the person who shared the data. So let's talk a bit about the IoT. I personally don't like the term IoT because it's so blurry for me, and I don't really know what the IoT is, because basically everything that could be connected to the internet is IoT. So is it your computer IoT? Is your mobile phone IoT device? It's really hard to distinguish what the IoT really is. I will speak more about the security in general, because I think you can't just secure IoT devices without securing the rest of your infrastructure. So, as I said, this is kind of a personal story for me. I bought a house. So that was the start of the story. And as a nerd, I wanted to make the house smart. So I started to research how to do that. I dreamed, obviously, of a home automation, so you have a house where everything just happens. And as a nerd, I was confident enough that I'm able to achieve it in a DIY way. Well, I will show you that that wasn't true. And this was like my mental image of how it should look like. So some nice cabinet somewhere in the house with all the technology and all the smart hubs and smart devices nicely packed into this rack. So that was my mental image of how it should look like. If you want to do a home automation in, let's say, at a bigger scale, so for example, for a bigger house, you have several options. The first one is to use one vendor, one solution from one vendor, which is like the devices usually live in one cloud and are connected together. Everything just works perfectly. Or my way, you've got a bunch of devices from different vendors, even the smart, even the dumb devices, and you need to connect them together somehow. The problem with the first approach for a big house is you are limited in terms of variety of the devices. So if you have, for example, some exotic device, you will have a hard time to connect it to your existing solution. So this was, let's say, these are my devices at my house at the moment I bought it. So there were some security cameras. There was a heating unit which was using kind of weird binary and proprietary protocol. And there was a very interesting thing. There was a smart power breaker or switch box, if you wish, which was based on Atmel processor. So it was kind of a Arduino-based power breaker. So that was interesting. So I had these devices, and then you can, for example, have some exotic devices, right? Like this one, which is supposed to be a smart cat feeder. I would say it's a little bit overcomplicated, but why not? So you have different devices, you need to connect them somehow. The problem is obviously with the, you need a plan, right? So I drew one. This is my plan. I am not very good at drawing, so forgive me, but this was my plan, right? This was my mental image of how it should look like, and this was my implementation. Okay, like obviously it didn't meet the criteria, but it worked. When you are connecting such a variety of devices, you probably run into a problem of standards and protocols. So at the physical layer, at the data link, I had a bunch of protocols like a Bluetooth, RS-232, CAN, eBus, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, almost everything. The other problem is at the transport layer. Again, there is a variety of standards and protocols, like devices usually exchange data using a textual data, JSON, HTTP request, XML, binary-oriented protocol, and some proprietary protocols, like it was in the case of the heating unit. So, to find a solution, I went through a research, and I went through a lot of pages, and finally I found the solution. The solution is called MQTT protocol. This protocol is really, really old. It basically came from the era of SCADA and industrial protocols. And it's an abbreviation for message queue telemetry transport. It's very lightweight, so it's easy to implement. There is no standardization for the payload, so basically it's just a binary blob. The thing is, it's publisher-subscriber model. So think about it like of RSS feed, for example. So you subscribe to some topic, and once any of the publishers publishes to that topic, you will get the payload. It's very convenient for interconnecting the devices. As I said, it's payload agnostic, so there is no standard for a payload. And actually there is no standard for a size payload, for a size of a payload as well. So that can lead to some problems, because there is no standardization, and every broker or server which implements this protocol behaves differently. So the topics can be organized in a tree-like structure. It's very similar to directories. So, and you can use wildcards. It's very similar to a file system. Usually operates through TCP on port 1883. There is a secure version which uses TLS at port 8883. And supports two very interesting things, which is a last will and persistent topics. Basically, the last will is when you are connecting to a server for the first time as a client, you could basically send a last will to the server in case the connection drop for some reason. So if you lose the connection, or if the client loses the connection with the server on behalf of the client publishes the last will. This is used especially when the infrastructure is mostly wireless, and it's used as usually this is the last will usually tells the other subscribers that the device went offline for some reason. And the persistent topics, it's kind of interesting. Basically, when you publish to a persistent topic, the payload stays in the server as a last state of that topic. So anytime any new subscriber subscribes to that topic, it immediately gets the payload. Okay, as I said, it can be organized into a tree-like structure, so it reminds the file structure. So you can use slashes and basically create a tree. It has two wildcards. One is the hash sign, and the other one is plus sign. Basically, the hash sign is very similar to asterisk in a, let's say, file system notation, and the plus sign is similar, or basically it's analogous to question mark. So, for example, subscription to this topic using the wildcards means that there can be any other level or the word instead of the plus sign. Which is interesting, or it's logical, but this is like interesting for purposes of attacker. If you are subscribed to only hash sign without anything else, the broker or the server delivers you every single topic that has been published to a server. So by subscribing to this, you can basically spy on the whole, or you can get the whole traffic from the broker. So the typical implementation of the home system is, as I said, mixture of devices. Usually it uses a one namespace, so it's very convenient because you can create one namespace or one tree of your whole building or house. It uses the MQTT Broker. The most popular one is Mosquito. And then it needs to have some kind of a business logic. So that's the thing that does the automation. Usually this is provided by open source solutions like Domotics, OpenHAB, Home Assistant, MQTT-, Node-RED, and many others. I will show you a few of them. So this could be like a typical setup of a smart home. So you have a really bunch of devices. You bridge them in case there is a different transport protocol or different layout of the data. You can bridge them somehow, usually by software or by some script, to MQTT topic, and the payload is usually JSON. And then the MQTT broker basically works as a messenger, and to the MQTT broker there is a business logic connected, which then does the automation. Maybe we missed something. Where was the security? Actually, there is a security. MQTT brokers, for example, the Mosquito, is a kind of secure solution. You can set up the password. You can use the TLS. You can even create ACL lists, so like access control lists to each topic. But the problem is nobody does that. So then it looks like this. Like the solution itself is secure, but the implementation sucks. And I want to show you this video because it's my favorite. And you will get to know why.
No! Wait! I'll tell. I knew it would work. All right, give it to me. The combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the stupidest combination I've ever heard in my life. That's the kind of thing an idiot would have on his luggage. Thank you, Your Highness.
Okay, so is it really that bad? The answer is it's a little bit better. it gets worse, because what I found when I was doing my research, because I wanted to secure my perimeter, is that many dashboards and many these business logics and these systems have no password set. By default, there is no password, there is no security. There are like 49K of MQTT servers available to connect on the internet. So they have like public IP addresses. And there are 32K MQTT servers open without any password set. Not a default password. No password at all. And if you remember, you can subscribe to a hash sign, right? And then you start to get very interesting data. So this will be let's say, a demo part. I set up rules for myself. So no real exploits. Everything I will do, you can do on your own at home without no tools whatsoever. So use what is available. Cause no harm, even if you are sometimes tempted to do so. So let's start. You probably know Hron, right? Everybody knows Hron. So this is the good starting point to search for MQTT servers. It's easy as like typing MQTT connection code 0, which means connected without any password. Because the Hron is collecting the banners on the internet, and it's also able to connect a list of topics. So if you do a search on MQTT, you will see all the topics that were active on that server by the time. Okay, so let me show you first demo. And actually, the only tool I'm like using for this presentation is the MQTT FX, which is a Java-based implementation of a MQTT client. It's very like easy and convenient. The problem is the font is small and it can't be enlarged. So I will run a magnifying glass. Okay, so I have some servers already preset. So you can see, for example, home with lots of sensors. I don't want to, I don't want to disclose the IP addresses, but you can find them by yourself on Hron. I think it's like GDPR, you know. So let's connect to the server. Okay, so now you can see we are connected. Actually, it's somewhere. Now you can publish, and what's of our interest is a subscription. So you can subscribe to a hash sign easily. And then you can see these are basically the topics. And you can see what's being published. So I can, for example, this is kind of interesting, and I will show you later. For example, this topic, it's retained. So this is the last state of the topic. And if you click on that, you will see the payload down there. Battery level. Well, it can be like longitude, latitude, GPS accuracy, user. That's interesting, and I will get to that later. So you can see it's very easy to connect to MQTT server and start getting data from the server. I can try another one. For example, there is one of the home automation smart boxes or the softwares for business logic, which is called Home Assistant. Again, we are connected. Yeah, what's nice on this software, like in the new version, there is, it's hardly visible, but there is a function that can collect just the topic's name. So I think it's this one. So it will basically it will create a list of all the topics that it sees. And you can see there is a lot of, there is a topic all lights, for example, right here. It's very easy to get the data. It's usually very easy to read the data because usually they are using a JSON for like a transport or like a protocol. And yeah, it's easy as this. So speaking of the business logic or the whole solution, open source solutions for home automation, there are like three main open source projects. One is called Domotics, Home Assistant, and OpenHAB. The concept is very similar, so it's usually running on some server. Through the MQTT it's basically connected to an MQTT Broker on the same server or on the other server. It doesn't really matter. And it basically consumes all the topics being published, and based on some internal logic and scripts, then publishes and controls the devices. It usually provides some front end or dashboard. And as I said, most of these dashboards are without any password, like this one. This is an example of Domotics dashboard. This one you can freely find on the internet, again using the Shodan. And you can see this is just an image, but if you enter the IP address in your browser, you will get a fully interactive control panel for someone's home, including a running Xiaomi robot vacuum cleaner. So this is really scary, right? Okay, another demo will be the short one. I can show you the example. Okay, example of one of the dashboards. This is kind of interesting because this dashboard, it's a Domotics one, has a floor plan in it. And this will be really live. I hope so. Okay, so this is interactive. Don't touch anything. And you can see the floor plan here. Switches for lights and all the stuff. Even the camera preset view. I don't want to touch that, but scenes. Actually, what's interesting on Domotics, it requires the user. It's kind of strange. It doesn't require the user to fill in the password and the username, but it requires the user to fill in the GPS coordinates to be able to provide a weather forecast. So if you go to a setup and the settings, okay, I probably lost the connection. So you can see the longitude and latitude again. Okay, the connection isn't very good, but can you see it here? So you have this exact spot of where the house is. And something is really rich here because I've seen the jacuzzi temperature here. So, and the jacuzzi power switch, wow. I haven't noticed that before. Great. So this is basically how this business logic or home automation system works. And I have one case study. This time it will be only with the pictures. It's a case study of a home assistant. I found a home assistant or some dashboard of a home assistant which was like properly secured. The password was set. It wasn't the default password, which was very surprising for me. And so I wasn't able to log in, right? But by running a shutdown query on the same IP address, I found this. Open Samba protocol without authentication and with the home assistant complete configuration and installation folder basically shared to the internet. What did I find there? These files. Notice especially this one. That's called security. And this is the content. Redacted, sorry. But I found the HTTP password, so it was very easy to get to the dashboard again. But you can see there were a lot of API keys and any other different passwords for cloud services. For example, for a Google Assistant project, for a Xiaomi gateway, and even at the bottom there is an MQTT username and password, because on this particular IP there was an MQTT server, but properly secured. By the way, the username and the password was MQTT server. Yeah, so I get a password, and this is the dashboard. You can even play a Spotify somewhere in the house from here. So it's, and you have the bus lines just in case you want to go somewhere. So it's really scary. It turned out that I wasn't the first who was there. I found this particular server. It's the other one. It's not this one, but it's the other one server. And there was this message from some whitehead. Sorry, mate, you have been hacked. Don't get depressed. Didn't change anything. Keep it as a lesson and change all passwords. Unfortunately, he didn't take it as a lesson because the passwords are still valid. And you can see the password and the username for iCloud, for example, for Ring. So, really scary. And then I was browsing through the Home Assistant forum because I was curious, how is it possible that so many Home Assistant, let's say, dashboards are available and without password? And I found this one. So someone like found out that he or she had been hacked. So I went to a documentation for the installation and setup of this software. And it's pretty standard wiki page. You can see like flash the downloaded image, set up the Wi-Fi or static IP, insert SD card. But what's interesting is the last paragraph, which says, enable either the Samba add-on or the SSH add-on. Come on, what is like easier for a user, right? Enable to Samba add-on because then he or she can easily edit all the configuration files. The problem is that in the documentation there is a default configuration of such a Samba add-on. And as you can see, like the guest is true, the add-ons is true. That means that you can access the add-ons using the guest account. And the config directory too, and the username and password is empty. Further in the documentation, there was a like username and password, and there was a mention like mentioned like an empty password is not supported. That's cool, right? Finally, someone is taking care of the security. But further in the documentation was this. Guest login without a username or password, default is true. Okay, now I will show you another application that uses MQTT and it's used as a dashboard for home automation. It uses, like the concept is quite different, and it's very interesting. It's an iOS or Android application, and you can create your own dashboard on your phone. So basically you can control the MQTT topics directly from that application, or receive the topics, and create your own dashboard with the tiles, like with the light bulb and with the numbers and sliders and things like that. So you can basically create your UI. What is interesting here is that storing such a configuration or layout of the dashboard is done by sending this configuration to MQTT server itself, to a topic, which is by default metrics / exchange. And the topic is persistent. So if you have an unsecured MQTT server and you find this topic on it, it's very likely that you can get the whole control panel very easily just through MQTT connection. And this is how it looks like. In this case, this is my house. I have no public IP address. And this is the MQTT dashboard, so it has like control tiles by pressing which you can basically control the whole house. It's running on a tablet. And then I found another MQTT server unsecured with this topic exposed. So I tried to connect to it. Sorry for the audio. This time without audio. So the only thing you have to do is input the IP address of the MQTT server, because there is no username and password, right? And then subscribe. It's barely visible, but basically you subscribe and wait for metrics. And you subscribe to a topic metrics / exchange. And after a while, you will receive the whole configuration. The video is not very good, but I have a static image in the next. So this is how it looks like now. So basically you can get the complete control again just using the MQTT without any additional tools. So there's supposed to be a demo with the MQTT dashboard, but there's a problem with the Android version. I have no clue how to present it, because you need to run it on Android or iOS device. So I recorded a video. So another application I found that uses MQTT heavily it's called OnTracks. And what is basically OnTracks, because it allows you to spy on the users of mobile phones to such extent that you are able to get their position, level of their battery, and you will get an instant update wherever the person or the phone moves. So the original intention of this software is like a personal GPS tracker with possibility to share your position with the family, for example, or with the home automation, because that's exactly the software that the home automation needs for be able to, for example, open your garage door when you are coming back home, or increase the temperature in the house. So it supports MQTT. And now I will show you probably the scariest part of the presentation. This time I will show you how you can find it on Shodan, right? So the only thing you are searching for is it's an open MQTT server with the topics starting with OnTracks. That's it. Okay. Let's see what we have here. Actually, I've already pre-selected some IP addresses because they were quite interesting. This one is interesting because there are multiple users connected to an MQTT server. So I made a simple script which basically subscribes to the topic and then displays the received data in, let's say, a nice way. So find me, okay, I will, sorry, you can't probably see it. Okay. Is it better? Can you see it now? So I will take this one. So it connects to a server, subscribe to the topic, and then starts receiving the published topics from that server. So you can see the timestamp there. I think this one is, okay, this one is quite old. It's not probably active. You can see the user, which is basically the name of the topic. This is how the topic looks like. And you can see the complete position, and using geocode you can get an approximate address, for example. And what is a really interesting IP address is the second one. Okay. Okay, we don't have a movement probably. Okay? This doesn't work obviously because there is probably night at the location. But this IP address is MQTT server that basically shares information about some soldier at some army base in Europe. Maybe, okay, I'll keep it running and maybe we'll see something. And to get further, I created a little application, well, web-based application using a Google Maps SDK. So let me show you this. I will run the server, connect to it, which is basically just a Google Maps. Okay. The connection is really slow. Come on. Okay, let's get back to it later because it's still loading the page. Wow, why is it so slow? And meantime, I will show you another thing that I found on one of the MQTT servers. It turned out that I found, like, basically by mistake, I found some BTS station of some telco provider somewhere in Eastern Europe, which publishes everything, every telemetry from the BTS station, even the images from the inside, even the status of a log of the BTS station, even the status of access cards that been used like to enter the BTS station, and it's really crazy. The thing is, even if you are using the MQTT server only for, let's say, monitoring some facility, so you are publishing just the telemetry, and it doesn't seem very, let's say, dangerous. The thing is, you can always publish to that server. So you can basically poison the data and create a false telemetry. I will find the RBS. Let's hope it will work, because the connection is not stable somehow. Okay, that happens when you do live demo. Okay, I'll probably cancel this one. Do we have a time? Come on. I will try one risky thing to disconnect my VPN. Alright, on open Wi-Fi. You have a chance to sniff the traffic now. Come on. Here we go. So this is the application I was speaking of. So this is basically just Google Maps, and there is a server running, and over a period of 1 week, I've collected GPS locations from one of these MQTT servers. So you can get a nice view. It takes a while once it gets all the data from the database, but you will probably see shortly the path being drawn. Come on. Yeah. Just give it a second. And yeah, here we go. So you can easily see someone's traveling around America. I think it's the East Coast of US. And the most scary thing about this is that this same server is connected to a home automation with the open dashboard. So you imagine the situation that you know exactly where and when the user is not at home. You can see the status of door locks, window sensors. So it's easy to misuse it, right? I have more recordings, but this one was very, let's say, interesting, and because usually people are traveling around the same spot, so it's not that interesting. Okay, and about the BTS station, I tried to connect to it. Yeah, we are connected. So now we are connected to some BTS station somewhere in Eastern Europe. You can subscribe and you are getting all the telemetry data. So I will again put the magnifying glass on. So you can see the JSON data being published on diesel generator or diesel aggregate and lots of things. There is also the output from a camera once per, I think, 1 minute. So, and it comes in an interesting format. It comes as a binary blob. It turned out that the binary blob is a tar file. And inside that tar file, there's a JSON file with the description and the timestamps and the JPEG file. So you can get easily the image. I saved the image just to show you, or the payload to show you how it looks like. So I'll cancel this. Come on. Basically, it looks like this. So it's a tar file. When you open it, there is an opt, AZT, site controller, TMP, which is probably the name of the software, the site controller. There's a description of the camera. And what's the most interesting thing, there is this JPEG file. When you open it, you get this one. Okay, so this is it. To conclude, these were the real-world examples how bad the situation is and how many servers are leaking data publicly. What should we do about it? Probably educate people more about security, but it's a never-ending story, right? We know it. Educate vendors and developers, that makes more sense to me. Not to break the best practices and using security as an opt-out always when you install some software. And please don't store password in a plain text. Never, ever. And stop saying that there is IoT security because there is only one security. And if you screw up with securing your perimeter, there is no way how can you secure the IoT devices, because in all these cases, the IoT devices were hidden inside the network and were probably well secured. And as a bonus, I found also this one. But the server is already down, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? So thank you very much for that, Martin. Does anybody have any questions for him?
Thanks, Tom. I was pretty unfamiliar with all this before the presentation. Did you find all this information in just a couple of places, one manual and one website? Or did it take like a few weeks of trawling the web?
Actually, because it was my, let's say, part-time project, it's not my job. So the research took almost 1 year, but it wasn't like 1 year of like constantly searching for something. But basically, all these I started with the Shodan and with the MQTT protocol itself, because that was the first thing I had to implement in my house. And I found out that default installation has no password set, so I started to be curious if there is like the usual case. So actually, before the Shodan, I used my own scanner. So I was scanning the whole internet. And found out that this is not the rare case. That's pretty common.
Do we have any other questions? Superb. Well, thank you very much. Everybody, please once again put your hands together for Martin. Thank you.